The rooftop was alive with laughter, clinking glasses, and the hum of a Portland summer night. But all I could hear was the thud of my own heart. Noah stood 3 feet away, his blonde hair catching the glow of fairy lights, and I swear he was staring at me longer than he should. I told myself it was the beer, but something in his eyes screamed trouble. My name's Elliot, 25, a graphic designer with a knack for overthinking and a playlist for every mood. I'd moved to Portland a year ago, chasing a fresh start after a messy breakup in Chicago. Noah was the first person I met here, a barista at the coffee shop down the street, 27, with a smile that could disarm a bomb. He was all charm, all confidence, and all straight, or so he claimed every time the topic came up. We'd been friends for months, sharing late-night talks, hikes in Forest Park, and too many beers to count. But tonight, something felt different. The party was at my place, a cramped but cozy loft with a rooftop that had a killer view of the city. It was a mix of coworkers, neighbors, and a few of Noah's buddies from his climbing gym. The air smelled of grilled burgers and pine from the trees lining the street below. I'd spent all day stressing over the playlist, the snacks, and whether Noah would even show up. He did, of course, in that damn flannel shirt that hugged his shoulders just right. "Elliot, you're gonna burn a hole in the floor if you keep pacing," he teased, handing me a cold IPA. His fingers brushed mine, and I froze. It wasn't the first time he'd done that, but tonight, it felt like a spark in a dry forest. "Shut up. I'm a great host," I shot back, trying to play it cool. My heart was doing somersaults. I'd been crushing on Noah since the day we met, but I'd buried it deep. He was straight. He'd said it 100 times when we talked about exes, when his buddies made dumb jokes, when I came out to him over wings at a dive bar. "I'm flattered, man, but I'm not into dudes," he'd said, all casual, like it was no big deal. I nodded, laughed it off, and told myself to move on. But moving on is hard when someone's laugh makes your chest ache. The night wore on, and the crowd thinned. By midnight, it was just me, Noah, and a couple of stragglers nursing their drinks. The music had softened to some lo-fi indie track, and the air was cooler now, carrying the faint scent of rain. Noah was sprawled on a folding chair, his third beer dangling from his hand, his eyes a little glassy. I sat across from him, pretending to check my phone, but really, I was watching him. The way his jaw tensed when he was deep in thought. The way he'd glance at me and then look away, like he was hiding something. "You ever think about leaving this place?" he asked out of nowhere, his voice low, almost drowned out by the music. "Portland." I raised an eyebrow. "Nah, I like it here. Feels like, I don't know, home." He nodded, staring at the skyline. "Yeah, I get that. But sometimes I wonder what else is out there. Like, what if I'm missing something?" I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. "Like what?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he took a long swig of his beer, his throat working as he swallowed. Then he looked at me, and I swear the air between us crackled. "I don't know, man. Something bigger." I wanted to push, to ask what he meant, but my phone buzzed. A text from my coworker, "Lila, great party, but you're staring at Noah like he's the last slice of pizza. Be careful." I groaned inwardly. Was I that obvious? "Dude, you good?" Noah asked, his voice pulling me back. "Yeah, just Lila being Lila." I waved it off, but my face felt hot. I needed to change the subject. "You're staying over, right? No way you're driving after 3 beers. He grinned, that lopsided grin that always got me. "You trying to keep me here, Elliot?" "Maybe." The word slipped out before I could stop it, and my stomach dropped. Too far, too flirty. But Noah just laughed, soft and warm, and didn't look away. The stragglers left around 1 a.m., leaving just me and Noah. We moved inside to clean up, tossing empty cans into a trash bag and stacking plates in the sink. The loft was quiet now, the only sound the faint hum of the fridge and the occasional car passing below. Noah leaned against the counter, watching me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. "You're different tonight," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I froze, a damp rag in my hand. "Different how?" He shrugged, but his eyes didn't leave mine. "I don't know. Bolder, maybe, like you're figuring something out." My heart was pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. I wanted to laugh it off, to say something snarky, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I stepped closer, close enough to smell the cedar and hops on him. "Maybe I am," I said, my voice shaking just enough to betray me. Noah didn't move. He just stood there, his breath hitching, his eyes searching mine. And then, like the world had tilted, he reached out, his hand grazing my arm. It wasn't an accident this time. It was deliberate, and it set my nerves on fire. "Elliot," he said, and my name sounded different in his mouth, like a secret he'd been holding on to. I've never. I didn't let him finish. Maybe it was the beer or the late hour, or the way his voice cracked with something raw, but I closed the gap between us. My hand found his jaw, rough with stubble, and I kissed him. It was tentative at first, like testing thin ice, but then he kissed me back. Hard, hungry, like he'd been starving for it. When we pulled apart, both of us breathless, he didn't pull away. He rested his forehead against mine, his hands gripping my waist like he was afraid I'd vanish. "I swore I was straight," he whispered, a laugh bubbling up, shaky and real. "But shit, Elliot, I don't know what I am anymore." I wanted to say something profound, something that would make sense of the chaos in my chest, but all I could manage was, "Me neither." We stood there, tangled in each other, the city humming outside, and I knew nothing would be the same. The morning after was a blur of sunlight and regret. Not mine, but Noah's. He was gone when I woke up, the couch where he'd crashed empty, his flannel shirt still slung over a chair. My loft felt too quiet, like it was holding its breath, waiting for him to come back. I didn't text him. I wanted to, but pride or fear or something else kept my phone in my pocket. Instead, I went through the motions: coffee, sketchpad, work emails, trying to ignore the ache in my chest. Last night had been real, hadn't it? The way he'd kissed me, the way his hands had trembled. It wasn't just the alcohol. But Noah had spent a year swearing he was straight, and I couldn't shake the fear that he'd woken up horrified, ready to pretend it never happened. By noon, I was a mess. I called Lila, who'd seen the whole thing coming. "Elliot, you're spiraling," she said over the phone, her voice sharp but kind. "Give him space. He's probably freaking out." "Space," I snapped, pacing my living room. "He kissed me back, Lila. He didn't just trip into it." She sighed. "I know, but you've got to let him process. Not everyone figures themselves out as fast as you did." I hated that she was right. I'd known I was gay since I was 15, sneaking glances at my high school's quarterback while pretending to care about algebra. Coming out had been messy but freeing, like shedding a too tight skin. Noah, though? He was 27, raised in a small Oregon town where different wasn't a compliment. If he was questioning now, it wasn't just about me, it was about his whole world. That evening, he texted, "Can we talk? Meet me at the climbing gym. 7 p.m. My stomach flipped. The gym was his turf, a warehouse-turned-climbing haven in southeast Portland. All chalk dust and sweat and adrenaline. I'd gone with him a few times, mostly to watch him scale walls like gravity was optional. Felt like neutral ground, but it also felt like a test. I got there early, my hands stuffed in my jacket pockets, the air thick with the smell of rubber mats and coffee from the gym's cafe. Noah was already there, clipping into a harness, his movements sharp, like he was trying to outrun something. He spotted me and nodded, his face unreadable. "Hey," I said, aiming for casual but landing somewhere near nervous. "Hey." He tightened his harness, avoiding my eyes. "You want to climb?" I raised an eyebrow. "You know I'm terrible at it." He smirked just for a second, and it felt like a lifeline. "Come on, I'll spot you." We climbed for an hour, him coaching me through a beginner's route while I tried not to fall or freak out. It was easier to focus on the holds than on the elephant in the room. But when we finally sat down, sweaty and out of breath, on a bench by the water cooler, the silence was deafening. "Noah," I started, but he cut me off. "Last night was a lot," he said, staring at his chalk-dusted hands. "I don't know what I'm doing, Elliot. I've never felt like that before. Not with anyone." My heart leapt, but his tone was heavy, like he was confessing a crime. "Felt like what?" I asked, keeping my voice soft. He looked up, his blue eyes raw. "Like I was finally awake. But it scares the shit out of me. I've got a whole life built on being someone else." I wanted to reach for him, but I didn't. "You don't have to have it all figured out," I said. "I don't either. But last night wasn't nothing." He nodded, slow, like he was testing the weight of my words. "I need time, okay? To think." I swallowed the urge to push, to demand answers. "Okay, but I'm here, Noah. Whenever you're ready." He gave me a small, grateful smile, and we sat there, the gym buzzing around us, both of us caught in the gravity of something new and terrifying. The next few weeks were a tightrope. Noah didn't disappear, but he didn't dive in either. We hung out, coffee runs, movie nights, a rainy hike to Multnomah Falls, but there was a new tension, like we were both waiting for the other to make a move. I caught him watching me sometimes, his eyes lingering, but he'd always look away, like he was afraid of getting caught. One night, at a dive bar in Old Town, things shifted again. We were playing pool, trash-talking over cheap beer, when a guy from Noah's climbing crew, Marcus, joined us. Marcus was loud, brash, and had a habit of making jokes that weren't funny. When I leaned over the table to take a shot, he smirked. "Careful, Noah. Your boy's got a fan club." Noah's cue froze midair. "What's that supposed to mean?" His voice was sharp, defensive. Marcus laughed, oblivious. "Just saying, Elliot's got that vibe. You two are, like, attached at the hip." I felt my face heat up, but Noah's reaction was worse. He slammed his cue down and walked out, leaving me and Marcus staring after him. I found him outside, leaning against the brick wall, his breath visible in the cold night air. "Noah, what the hell?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. He didn't look at me. "I don't know how to do this, Elliot. People are gonna talk. They're gonna know." "Know what?" I pushed, stepping closer. "That you like me? That we're whatever this is." He flinched, but he didn't deny it. "I'm not ready for that. Not yet." I wanted to yell, to tell him to grow up, but the fear in his eyes stopped me. Instead, I took his hand, slow and deliberate, and squeezed. "You don't have to be ready, but don't shut me out." He squeezed back, just for a second, before letting go. "I'm trying," he whispered, and for now that was enough. Fall in Portland was a riot of color. Red maples, golden oaks, and the constant drizzle that made everything feel alive. But between me and Noah, things were gray, uncertain. We were stuck in this limbo, not quite friends, not quite more, and it was driving me insane. I threw myself into work, designing logos for a local brewery, but my mind kept drifting to him. Noah was trying, I could tell. He'd show up at my loft with takeout, or text me dumb memes at 2 a.m., but he was still holding back. Every time we got close, physically, emotionally, he'd pull away, like he was scared of crossing a line he couldn't uncross. One Saturday, he invited me to a bonfire at his friend Sasha's place, a cabin just outside the city. Sasha was 30, non-binary, with a shaved head and a laugh that could fill a room. Their cabin was a chaotic mix of thrift store furniture and string lights, nestled in a clearing surrounded by fir trees. The bonfire crackled, casting shadows on the faces of the dozen or so people there. Climbers, artists, a few tech folks from Noah's orbit. I felt out of place, nursing a cider and trying not to stare at Noah, who was helping Sasha stack wood. He looked good in the firelight, his flannel sleeves rolled up, his face relaxed for once. I was chatting with a woman named Priya, a coder with a sharp wit, when Noah caught my eye and waved me over. "Help me grab more wood?" he asked, his voice casual but his eyes intense. We walked to the woodpile behind the cabin, the air cool and thick with the scent of pine. Alone now, the silence between us was heavy. I couldn't take it anymore. "Noah, what are we doing?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. "You kiss me, then act like it never happened. You invite me here, but you're still, I don't know, hiding." He stopped, a log in his hands, and looked at me. "I'm not hiding," he said, but it sounded like a lie. I don't know how to be this person yet." "What person?" I pressed, stepping closer. "The guy who likes me? Because that's who you were that night." He set the log down, his jaw tight. "It's not that simple, Elliot. My family, my friends, they expect me to be someone else. I've spent my whole life being that guy. The straight guy. The one who doesn't make waves." I wanted to shake him, to tell him he didn't know anyone that version of himself. But instead, I softened. "Noah, you don't have to be that guy with me. I see you. The real you." He looked at me, and for a moment, I thought he'd kiss me again. But then Sasha's voice cut through the dark, calling us back to the fire. The moment broke, and we carried the wood back in silence. The rest of the night was a blur of laughter, music, and too much cider. Noah stayed close, his shoulder brushing mine as we sat by the fire, but he didn't make a move. When we drove back to the city, the car was quiet, the radio playing some soft folk song. I wanted to reach for his hand, but I didn't. Not yet. The next week, things got complicated. Noah's older brother, Caleb, was in town, crashing at Noah's apartment. Caleb was 32, a contractor with a loud laugh and a habit of talking over everyone. Noah had mentioned him before. A traditional guy, close with their parents, not exactly open-minded. I didn't meet him until Noah invited me to dinner at a taco joint downtown. Caleb was friendly enough, but his vibe was off. He kept steering the conversation to Noah's ex-girlfriends, asking when he'd settle down. Noah laughed it off, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. When Caleb made a crack about Portland weirdos, I felt Noah's knee press against mine under the table, like an apology. After dinner, Caleb headed to a bar, leaving me and Noah alone on the sidewalk. The city was alive with neon lights and the hum of Friday night crowds. Noah looked exhausted, his hands stuffed in his pockets. "Your brother's intense," I said, trying to keep it light. Noah snorted. "Yeah, he's got this idea of who I'm supposed to be. Always has." I hesitated, then asked, "Does he know? About us?" Noah's eyes flicked to mine, then away. "There's no us, Elliot. Not yet." The words stung, but I saw the fear behind them. "Okay," I said, my voice steady. "But when you're ready to tell him or anyone, I'll be right here." He didn't say anything, but he stepped closer, his shoulder brushing mine as we walked. It wasn't much, but it was something. Winter crept into Portland, gray and relentless. Noah and I were still dancing around each other, but the distance was shrinking. He'd started texting me more, random thoughts, photos of his climbs. a playlist he'd made that felt like a confession in song form. But he was still cautious, like he was testing the waters with one foot on shore. One night, he showed up at my loft unannounced, his hair damp from the rain. "Got a minute?" he asked, his voice rough. I let him in, my heart racing. He looked different, nervous but determined. We sat on my couch, the city lights flickering through the window. He didn't waste time. "I told Caleb," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "About you, about how I feel." I froze. "What did he say?" Noah laughed, bitter. "He didn't get it. Said I was confused, that I just needed to find the right girl. But I told him I'm not confused. Not about you." My breath caught. "Noah." He held up a hand. "Let me finish. I've been scared, okay? My whole life I've done what people expected. But I can't keep pretending I don't feel this. I don't know what I am, bi, gay, whatever. But I know I want you." The air felt electric. I reached for his hand, and this time he didn't pull away. We kissed, slower than the first time, but deeper, like we were making up for lost time. When we pulled apart, he was smiling, a real smile, not the guarded one he'd worn for months. Things weren't perfect after that. Caleb stopped talking to Noah, and I could tell it hurt him more than he let on. But Noah was trying, really trying. We went on actual dates, quiet ones at first, coffee shops, bookstores, a late-night walk along the Willamette River. He was still nervous about being seen, but he didn't flinch when I took his hand in public. One night, at a queer open mic night in a basement bar, things clicked. Noah had never been to a place like this, and I could tell he was out of his element, surrounded by drag queens and poets and couples holding hands. But when a trans poet read a piece about finding love after loss, Noah's hand found mine under the table. He didn't let go until we left. Outside, under a streetlight, he kissed me, right there in the open. "I'm done hiding," he said, his voice steady. "I want this. I want us." I grinned, my chest tight with something like hope. Good, because I'm not going anywhere. Spring came, and with it, a lightness I hadn't felt in years. Noah and I were official now, navigating this new thing together. It wasn't always easy. His parents were distant and some of his old friends drifted away, but he was all in, and so was I. We moved in together that April, into a tiny apartment with a view of Mount Tabor. It was chaotic, full of mismatched furniture and arguments over whose turn it was to do dishes. But it was ours. One night, as we lay in bed, the city quiet outside, Noah turned to me. "I used to think I had to be someone else to be happy," he said. "But you make me feel like I'm enough." I kissed him, my heart full. "You are." A year after that first kiss, we went back to the rooftop where it all started. The city skyline was the same, but we were different, stronger, surer. Noah took my hand, his thumb tracing circles on my skin. "I love you," he said, simple and true. "I love you too," I said, and we stood there, the world stretching out before us, no longer afraid of who we were. The journey hadn't been easy. Noah had lost people, faced doubts, and wrestled with a version of himself he'd outgrown. But he'd chosen authenticity, chosen us, and that choice was a quiet revolution. In a world that often demanded conformity, we'd carved out a space for love, real, messy, and ours.